This can't be happening. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at my phone screen. The message had been sent, but to the wrong place. Hubby, bring lunch home. I miss you. This message was supposed to go to my boyfriend. Instead, it went to the company group chat. I'm Justin, Richard Hale's secretary, and I just called my CEO Hubby in front of the entire office. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I checked the screen over and over, hoping this was some kind of nightmare. But no, the message was there, clear as day, and already 18 people had seen it. The HR team saw it, the finance department saw it, the marketing head saw it, and worst of all, Richard Hale saw it. My hands started trembling. I pressed the delete button, but the message only disappeared from my end. Everyone had already read it. The office air conditioning was running full blast, yet sweat formed on my forehead. Would I even have a job tomorrow? Probably not. Then a notification appeared. Richard's name lit up my screen. Richard Hale had replied. Okay. Wait for me at home. My mind went completely blank. What did that mean? Was he serious? Or was he mocking me? Richard Hale, the man who never spoke casually, who only discussed work-related matters, was responding to my joke. My phone vibrated again. This time it was a private message. Conference room. Come now. I stood up from my desk. My legs felt like lead. Every step felt like the ground was sinking beneath me. Some people in the office were glancing my way. A few were smiling. My face burned with embarrassment. It took only 30 seconds to reach the conference room door. But those 30 seconds felt like an eternity. Inside, Richard was already standing there. His black suit fit him perfectly. His tie was perfectly straight. His hands were in his pockets. His eyes were fixed on the window, looking out at the city buildings, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. Come in, Justin, he said without looking at me. There was no emotion in his voice whatsoever. I stepped inside. The door closed automatically behind me. The click sound made the room suddenly feel much smaller than it actually was. Richard turned toward me. For the first time, he looked directly into my eyes. There was something in that gaze I had never seen before. Who is your boyfriend? The question was completely unexpected. I couldn't speak. I just stared at him, frozen. Richard took one step closer. I asked you a question. Who is your boyfriend, Justin? No sound came from my lips. Because the way he was moving toward me, it wasn't just curiosity in his expression. There was possessiveness too. And in that very moment I understood, maybe he wasn't just talking about work anymore. The air between us felt thick, charged with something I couldn't name. Richard's presence was overwhelming. He had always been intimidating in meetings, commanding respect with just a glance. But this was different. This felt personal. Dangerously personal. I stammered, trying to find words that wouldn't make this situation worse. Take your time, Richard said, his voice dropping lower. He crossed his arms, leaning slightly against the conference table. I have all day. That wasn't true. I knew his schedule better than anyone. He had a client call in 15 minutes, followed by back-to-back meetings until 6. But something told me he had just cleared his afternoon calendar in his mind. For me, he's just someone I've been seeing. I finally managed. It's nothing serious. Even as the words left my mouth, I realized how true they were. My relationship with my boyfriend had always felt surface level. We went through the motions, but there was never any real depth. He never asked about my day, never remembered the little things I mentioned in passing. Not like Richard, who apparently knew I liked creamy pasta without me ever telling him directly. Nothing serious, Richard repeated, as if testing the words. Yet you call him Hubby in messages? I wanted to disappear into the floor. It's just a pet name. People use them all the time. It doesn't mean anything specific. Richard's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. If I hadn't spent the last 2 years studying his every micro-expression during negotiations, I would have missed it entirely. I see, he said, pushing off from the table. He walked toward me with measured steps, each one making my pulse race faster. He stopped just close enough that I could smell his cologne. Cedar and something darker, more complex. So you throw around terms of endearment carelessly. Good to know. That's not what I meant. What did you mean then, Justin? He tilted his head slightly, his dark eyes never leaving mine. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're in a relationship you don't value. with someone who doesn't appreciate what he has. My throat went dry. Sir, with all due respect, my personal life became my business the moment you made that declaration in our company chat. Richard interrupted smoothly. Now everyone in this building thinks you're in a committed relationship. Some are probably wondering if this affects your work performance. Others might question your professionalism. Horror washed over me. I hadn't thought about the professional implications. I can send a clarification message. Explain it was a mistake. Apologize. No. The single word stopped me cold. No? I echoed, confused. Richard's expression shifted into something I couldn't quite read. No clarification. Let them think whatever they want. But here's what's going to happen from now on. He pulled his phone from his pocket and tapped something quickly. I'm adding you to my senior staff list. You'll attend all my important meetings as my direct assistant. You'll accompany me to business dinners and company events. You'll be at my side during negotiations. My mind reeled. But I'm just a secretary. You have senior executives for those roles. And now you have a new role, Richard said firmly. Consider it a promotion. HR will process the paperwork by end of day. Your salary will be adjusted accordingly. This was insane. None of this made sense. Why are you doing this? For the first time since I'd entered the room, Richard's expression softened just a fraction. It was barely noticeable, but I caught it, a slight relaxation around his eyes, a hint of something almost vulnerable. Because, Justin, he said quietly, I want your so-called boyfriend to understand exactly who you spend your days with. I want him to see that your time, your energy, your brilliance, it all belongs here. With me. In this company. He didn't say with me like he meant the company. The emphasis was clear. I don't understand what you're saying, I whispered, even though part of me understood perfectly. Richard reached out and adjusted my tie, which had gone crooked when I'd rushed to the conference room. His fingers brushed against my collar, sending an unexpected shiver down my spine. You will, he murmured. Eventually you'll understand everything. He stepped back, the professional mask sliding back into place seamlessly. Now go. Finish your current tasks. We have a client dinner at 7. Wear something presentable. I'll pick you up from your desk. I nodded numbly and turned toward the door. My hand was on the handle when his voice stopped me one more time. And Justin, delete that boyfriend's number from your emergency contacts. If anything happens to you, I should be the first person who gets called. Not him. I left the conference room in a daze. My entire world tilted on its axis. What had just happened? Words failed me completely. Richard stood close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. His cologne was subtle yet commanding, much like the man himself. Everything about this moment felt surreal. Justin. He spoke my name with such calmness, yet there was an undercurrent I couldn't identify. You seem nervous. You sent a wrong message, didn't you? So tell me honestly, who exactly is this boyfriend of yours? My gaze dropped to the floor. I couldn't handle the intensity of his stare. Richard Hale, the man who remained emotionless during million-dollar negotiations, who never asked personal questions. Why was he suddenly so invested in my private life? Thoughts raced through my mind. Should I tell the truth? Make something up? But those eyes of his, they seemed to see right through every potential lie. He's no one important. I finally admitted. Technically it was the truth. My boyfriend wasn't particularly caring. We were together, but it never felt like he genuinely thought about me or my needs. Our relationship was comfortable, familiar, but empty of real substance. Richard's hand came up to rest against the wall beside my head. He leaned in slightly. No one important? Then why call him hubby? Heat flooded my cheeks. This was torture. Sweet, excruciating torture. It's just an inside joke between us, I explained. Words tumbling out quickly. I never thought it would end up in the group chat. I'm truly sorry, sir. It won't happen again. Richard remained silent for several long seconds. He simply watched me, his expression unreadable. Those dark eyes seemed to be cataloging every micro-expression on my face, reading things I didn't even know I was revealing. Then he pulled back, creating distance between us. He took a deep breath, straightened his jacket, and walked over to sit in his executive chair. He looked more relaxed now, but his attention never wavered from me. Fine, he said. Go back to your work. But remember this. Starting today, you'll be spending significantly more time with me. Confusion washed over me. What did that mean? Sir, I don't understand. He opened his laptop, switching into his professional tone. It means you'll now attend every important meeting with me. Every business dinner. Every corporate event. Understood? But why? I'm only your secretary, because, he looked up at me again, I want that boyfriend of yours to clearly see whose secretary you are, and whose time you should be dedicating yourself to. Those words created a strange flutter in my chest. Why was he saying this? Why did it matter to him? When I left his office, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Messages from my boyfriend filled the screen. Justin, what was that in the group chat? Explain yourself right now. Are you ignoring me? That joke wasn't funny. It was completely embarrassing. My mood soured instantly. He hadn't asked once if I was okay, if I was mortified, if I needed support. He only cared about his own embarrassment, his own feelings. I stood outside Richard's office, looking back through the glass partition. He appeared focused on his computer, but something told me he knew I was still standing there watching him. Evening approached when Richard emerged from his office. Justin, pack your things. You're coming with me. Sir, where? Dinner. You're accompanying me. It wasn't a request. It was a directive. Yet his voice carried a gentleness I rarely heard. But sir, my boyfriend, text him that you have work obligations. Richard grabbed his car keys and started walking. He'll understand. Or he won't. Either way, you're coming. What choice did I have? I followed him, my heart pounding for reasons I didn't want to examine too closely. When we arrived at the restaurant, I realized it was incredibly upscale. Candlelight flickered on every table. Soft jazz played in the background. This was clearly a place where couples came for romantic evenings. Richard guided me to a private corner table. When the waiter arrived, he ordered for both of us without consulting the menu. You like creamy pasta, don't you? He asked casually. Shock rippled through me. How did you? I never mentioned that. A small smile played at the corners of his mouth, the first genuine one I'd ever seen from him. I'm your boss, Justin. I notice everything about you. My heart skipped several beats. Throughout dinner he didn't mention work once. Instead he asked about my hobbies, my family background, my favorite books and movies. It felt like he genuinely wanted to know me, the real me beneath the professional facade. I realized with startling clarity that my boyfriend had never listened to me this attentively. He'd never shown this level of genuine interest in understanding who I was as a person. On the drive back, my phone rang. My boyfriend's name flashed on the screen. I answered hesitantly. Hello, where are you? I've been waiting at your apartment. His voice was sharp, accusatory. I told you I had work. Work? Or are you out with your hubby? The sarcasm in his tone was cutting. Richard heard every word. His eyes flicked toward me briefly before returning to the road. I ended the call abruptly, unable to handle the confrontation. Your boyfriend is possessive, Richard observed neutrally. He's just misunderstanding the situation. Justin. Richard pulled the car over to the side of the road, putting it in park. He turned to face me fully. If he truly understood you, he would trust you. Wouldn't he? I had no response to that. No defense, because he was absolutely right. When I finally got home, I found a message waiting from my boyfriend. We're done, Justin. I can't handle this level of disrespect. My heart sank, but surprisingly, no tears came. Perhaps because nothing inside me had actually broken. The relationship had been hollow for so long that its ending felt almost like a relief. The next morning at the office, Richard called me into his cabin before I'd even settled at my desk. I heard about your breakup, he stated without preamble, his expression carefully neutral. I remained silent, unsure what to say. He stood up from his chair and walked around the desk toward me. Then for the first time since I'd known him, he reached out and took my hand in his. Good, he said simply. Now you need a new hubby. My heart stopped completely. The warmth of his hand, the intensity in his eyes, the implication behind those words, everything crashed over me at once. This wasn't about work anymore. This had never been about work. Richard Hale, CEO of one of the most successful companies in the city, was telling me he wanted to be more than my boss. And the terrifying part, I wanted that too. Sir, what are you saying? Disbelief flooded through me. Shock rendered me almost immobile. Had Richard just seriously suggested he should be my new hubby? Was this reality or some fever dream I'd slipped into? Richard didn't release my hand. His grip was firm yet somehow gentle at the same time. You heard exactly what I said, Justin. I tried to pull away. Sir, please, this is inappropriate. I'm your employee. Employee? His hold tightened just slightly, keeping me in place. Justin, you're not just an employee. You know that. He looked directly into my eyes. The intensity there made it impossible to look away. I don't know what you mean. My voice trembled despite my attempt to sound steady. Richard guided me to sit in the chair across from his desk, then positioned himself on the edge of the desk itself, bringing us to eye level. Our knees were nearly touching now. Listen, he began, his tone serious but not unkind. I want complete honesty between us. No games, no confusion. I stayed quiet, letting him continue. Your ex-boyfriend ended things over a simple mistake. He didn't give you a single second to explain. He didn't stand by you when things got awkward. That man never loved you, Justin. He just wanted to own you, to keep you under his control. Each word struck deep because they rang with truth. My ex had always been controlling, always suspicious, never truly supportive, but I'm different. Richard reached out and gently lifted my chin so I had to meet his gaze. I don't want to force you into anything. I want to understand you. I want to protect you. And yes, I want to make you mine. But only when you're ready. Only when you truly want it to. A single tear escaped down my cheek before I could stop it. Richard wiped it away with his thumb, the gesture so tender it made my chest ache. Don't cry. You deserve someone who values you. Someone who makes you their priority. But you're the CEO. Successful, powerful, wealthy. And I'm just an ordinary person. Ordinary? A genuine smile crossed his features. Justin, you're the most extraordinary person I've ever met. Your smile brightens my entire day. Your nervous habits are endearing. The way you care about small details. The way you anticipate needs before they're voiced. Everything about you captivates me. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. Think it over, he said, standing up and creating some professional distance again. I'll wait for your answer. But understand this, I can't watch you be with someone else. Not anymore. He returned to his desk and immersed himself in work. But I caught the sincerity in his expression before he turned away. The entire day passed in a fog. I couldn't concentrate on anything. Richard's words replayed in my mind on an endless loop, each repetition making my confusion deepen and my heart race faster. When evening came and I prepared to leave, the receptionist called me over. Justin, there's a delivery for you. I approached the desk to find an elegant arrangement of white roses. Attached was a small card with a handwritten note. You deserve better. Always. My face flushed hot. My pulse quickened all over again as I carried the flowers to my car, acutely aware of curious glances from other employees leaving for the day. The following morning brought another surprise. I'd barely sat down when the HR director made an announcement over the office intercom. Justin Carter, effective immediately, you're promoted to personal assistant to the CEO. You'll attend all important meetings alongside Mr. Hale and report directly to him for all assignments. Every eye in the office turned toward me. Some people looked shocked. Others appeared envious. A few seemed confused about the sudden change. I had no idea why this was happening so fast. What was Richard planning? Gathering my courage, I walked to his office. The moment I entered, he locked the door behind me. Sir, Richard. My name is Richard. He removed his suit jacket, hanging it carefully. From now on, officially, we'll be working much more closely together. Professionally speaking. And, personally too, if that's what you choose. I took an instinctive step backward. This is moving too fast. Richard closed the distance between us immediately. Then I'll slow down. But Justin, you need to understand something. I can't function anymore without knowing you're part of my life. The raw honesty in that confession made my defenses crumble. I'm attracted to you too, I finally admitted, the words rushing out. But I'm scared. Scared of what? That this might be temporary. That you'll lose interest. That Richard pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly. The embrace was warm, secure, all-encompassing. I will never abandon you, he whispered against my hair. That's a promise. I melted into his embrace, feeling all my fears and doubts dissolve in that moment. When we finally separated, Richard pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. Starting tonight, you're moving in with me. I jolted in surprise. What? To my penthouse? Your ex has been lurking around your apartment building. Security footage shows he's been there multiple times. His behavior is escalating into something potentially dangerous. I need to know you're safe. I hadn't realized my ex could become obsessive like this. But Richard's serious expression told me he wasn't exaggerating the threat. Okay. I agreed quietly. I'll stay with you. Richard squeezed my hand reassuringly. And in that moment, I felt certain I was making the right decision. Later that afternoon, Richard personally helped me pack essentials from my apartment. He insisted on being there, refusing to let me go alone, given the circumstances. His protectiveness should have felt overwhelming, but instead it made me feel cherished. As we loaded boxes into his car, I noticed him watching the street carefully, alert for any sign of my ex. The way he positioned himself between me and potential danger. The way he kept one hand on the small of my back to guide me. Everything about his behavior screamed that he meant what he'd said. I wasn't just an employee to him. I wasn't just a casual interest. I was someone he intended to protect, to care for, to keep close. All set? Richard asked as we finished loading the last box. I nodded, taking one final look at the apartment I'd lived in for 3 years. Leaving felt symbolic somehow, like closing a chapter of my life that had never quite fit properly anyway. Let's go home, Richard said softly. Home. Not his place. Not the penthouse. Home. And somehow that single word choice made all the difference. As we drove through the city streets toward his building, Richard reached over and laced his fingers through mine. The gesture was simple, but it spoke volumes about what he wanted this to become. Whatever happened next, whatever this relationship evolved into, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Richard Hale meant every word he'd said. And maybe, just maybe, I was ready to believe in something real for the first time in my life. This is enormous. I stood in the center of Richard's penthouse, turning slowly to take in my surroundings. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed the entire city skyline, twinkling like a galaxy laid out before us. Marble floors gleamed under recessed lighting. Modern furniture in sleek blacks and grays created an atmosphere of refined elegance. The place looked like something from an architectural magazine. Richard hung his coat on a minimalist rack near the entrance. Your room is in the left wing. Complete privacy. I'm not forcing you to share my space. I exhaled slowly, trying to process everything. Then, why bring me here at all? He moved closer, closing some of the distance between us. Because your ex might be dangerous. He's been loitering near your apartment building. Security informed me yesterday. My heart dropped. What? But he blocked me. He ended things. Blocking someone and letting them go are two entirely different things. Richard's hand came to rest lightly on my shoulder. I refuse to let you remain in an unsafe situation. Do you understand? I nodded silently, because genuine fear was starting to creep in now. Richard picked up my overnight bag. Come on. Let me show you where you'll be staying. He led me upstairs to a spacious guest room. The bed looked incredibly comfortable, dressed in high thread count linens. An attached bathroom featured modern fixtures and soft lighting. Everything was perfect. Almost too perfect. If you need anything at all, just let me know. I'll be downstairs in the master bedroom. Thank you, Richard, I said quietly, meaning it more than he probably realized. He reached out and gently ruffled my hair. The gesture affectionate and oddly protective, like I was something precious he needed to take care of. Get some rest. We have work tomorrow. But rest proved impossible. The unfamiliar surroundings kept me alert. Every small sound seemed amplified in the quiet penthouse. And beyond that, there was the strange awareness that Richard was just downstairs, close enough to reach in seconds. Around 2 in the morning, thirst drove me from bed. I made my way downstairs to the kitchen, moving quietly through the dimly lit space. But when I reached the kitchen, I froze completely. Richard was already there, shirtless, wearing only black jogger pants that hung low on his hips. His body was perfectly sculpted, defined abs, strong arms, broad shoulders. He looked like he'd been carved from marble by a master sculptor. I stopped moving, unable to tear my gaze away. He noticed me immediately. Justin? Couldn't sleep? I quickly averted my eyes, heat flooding my face. No, Just needed water. He approached me with easy confidence. You're overthinking things, aren't you? Maybe a little, I admitted, still not quite meeting his eyes. Richard opened the refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of water, pouring it into a glass for me. Here, and be honest with me. Are you uncomfortable being here? No, not at all. I'm just adjusting to everything. He came to stand directly in front of me, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. Justin, don't hide anything from me. If something bothers you, if you're frightened, if you need space, tell me. Always. I finally looked up into his eyes. The concern there was genuine. The care was real. I don't understand, I whispered. Why are you doing all of this for me? Richard cupped my face in his hands, the touch gentle and deliberate. Because you're what I want. It's that simple. My heart stopped beating for several long seconds. He leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. Light but incredibly intimate in its tenderness. Now go back to bed. We have an important presentation tomorrow. He turned me toward the stairs with a gentle hand on my shoulder. I walked away, but the feeling of that kiss stayed with me for the rest of the night, keeping me warm despite the air conditioning. The next morning at the office, everything appeared normal on the surface, but internally I knew something fundamental had shifted between us. After our mid-morning meeting concluded, Richard called me into his office. Justin, is there something you want to tell me? Nervousness fluttered in my stomach. No? Why do you ask? He smiled knowingly. You're a terrible actor. Your face reveals everything you're thinking. My cheeks burned with embarrassment. Richard stood from his chair and walked to his desk drawer, retrieving a small black velvet box. My breathing stopped entirely. What is that? I asked, though my racing heart already suspected the answer. He opened the box slowly. Inside lay a simple silver ring, elegant and understated, exactly the kind of design that would suit me. This is a promise ring, Richard said, his voice steady and sure. I'm serious about you, Justin. Officially and completely. Shock rendered me speechless. But, Richard, it's only been a few days. When I make a decision, he interrupted firmly. I'm certain about it, and I'm certain that you're what I want. Forever. He took the ring from the box and slid it onto my left hand. It fit perfectly, like it had been made specifically for me. From this moment forward, you belong only to me. Happy tears filled my eyes. For the first time in my life, someone made me feel genuinely valued, truly cherished. I couldn't find words. Instead, I simply stepped forward and embraced him. Richard held me tightly. I've got you, Justin. Always and forever. But that evening, as we were leaving the office together, everything changed. In the parking garage, my ex was waiting. Madness gleamed in his eyes, desperation evident in his posture. Justin, stop right there. Fear shot through me instantly. Richard immediately took my hand, positioning himself protectively. My ex approached us aggressively. So it's true, you've become his property now? Richard stepped between us. He's not my property. He's my partner. And you have absolutely no right to touch him. My ex lunged forward, trying to grab my collar. But Richard was incredibly fast. He caught my ex's wrist and twisted it sharply, making him cry out in pain. If you come near Justin again, Richard said in a voice like ice, I'll take legal action. Police reports, restraining orders, everything necessary to keep you away from him. My ex stumbled backward, fear replacing his earlier bravado. He turned and ran from the garage. Richard turned to me immediately. Are you all right? I just stared at him. This man had just defended me, protected me without hesitation. For the first time, I threw my arms around him in public. Right there in the parking garage, where anyone could see. Thank you, I whispered against his shoulder. Thank you so much, Richard. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. I'll never let anything hurt you. Never. And in that moment, standing in his arms, I knew with absolute certainty that this man was real. His feelings were genuine. His promises were solid. Richard Hale wasn't playing games with my heart. He was offering me something I'd never had before. True security, genuine care, and the promise of a future built on trust. As we drove back to the penthouse that night, I kept glancing at the ring on my finger, watching it catch the streetlights. Each flash of silver felt like a reminder that I wasn't alone anymore. I had someone who would stand beside me, fight for me, protect me, and maybe, just maybe, I was finally ready to believe that I deserved exactly that. Justin, please verify these documents for me, I sat beside Richard in the conference room during our client meeting. Everything remained professional on the surface, but I could feel the shift in how people looked at me now, because I wore Richard's ring on my finger. Visible proof of our connection. Some colleagues watched with curiosity, others with barely concealed jealousy, but nobody said anything directly, maintaining appropriate workplace decorum. The meeting concluded successfully. Our client seemed impressed with the proposal. The deal was finalized with handshakes all around. After everyone else filed out, Richard stopped me with a gentle hand on my arm. "Are you doing okay? You look exhausted." "Yeah, just a bit tired. Today was demanding." He took the folder from my hands. "I've been working you too hard. Come on, let's take a proper lunch break." Surprise flickered through me. "Right now? But you have another meeting in 30 minutes. Richard spoke into the intercom to his assistant. "Reschedule my next appointment. Something urgent has come up." Then he looked at me with complete sincerity. "Spending time with you, that's the urgent matter." My heart melted completely. We went to a small, quiet restaurant away from the business district. The atmosphere felt relaxed, almost intimate. Richard loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves. For the first time he looked casually comfortable rather than corporate and untouchable. "Tell me what you'd like to eat," he said, studying the menu. "Anything is fine, Justin." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Express your preferences. I want to know you properly. Every like, every dislike, every small detail that makes you who you are." Emotion swelled in my chest. Why was this man so incredibly attentive? "I really enjoy creamy pasta," I finally admitted. Richard smiled genuinely. "Perfect choice. I'll order that for both of us." When our food arrived, he served my plate himself, arranging everything with care as if I were someone extraordinarily special. "Richard," I said softly, "you do so much for me." He met my gaze directly. "Justin, this isn't too much. This is normal. When you love someone, this is exactly how you should treat them." My hands trembled slightly. He just said, "Love? You love?" "Yes." His eyes held mine steadily. "I love you, Justin." Clearly and honestly, without any reservation. Overwhelming emotion crashed over me. Tears I couldn't control spilled down my cheeks. Richard leaned forward with a napkin, gently wiping them away. "Don't cry. You should be happy right now." I feel the same way about you," I started, struggling to articulate the depth of my feelings. "I mean, you don't need to say it yet." Richard brought my hand to his lips and kissed it softly. "When you're ready, you'll tell me. I can wait." But suddenly the restaurant door opened. My ex walked in. Dread filled my stomach instantly. Anger and jealousy twisted his features as he spotted us. "You're here with him?" He approached our table aggressively. Richard stood immediately, moving into a protective stance. "I warned you yesterday," Richard said calmly, though threat underscored every word. "I just want to talk to Justin. Alone." My ex stared at me desperately. I stood as well. "I have nothing to say to you. Please leave." "Justin, please." "I want to apologize." "Too late for that." Richard stepped between us decisively. "You already lost your chance. Justin is with me now. Officially. And I'm not going anywhere." My ex, in a moment of complete stupidity, tried to shove Richard aside. Big mistake. Richard was far stronger than he appeared. He grabbed my ex's arm and physically escorted him out of the restaurant, not quite dragging him but making it impossible for him to resist. Other diners watched the scene unfold. Embarrassment heated my face, but I also felt something else. Gratitude that Richard would defend me so completely. Richard returned and took my hand. "Let's go. We're leaving." We drove back to the penthouse in silence. I remained quiet, processing everything that had happened. "Justin." Richard guided me to sit on the living room sofa. "I know what you're thinking. I don't want you to get into trouble because of me." Richard knelt in front of me, bringing himself to my eye level. He took my face in his hands. "Listen carefully. You're not trouble for me, you're my priority, my happiness, and I'll do absolutely anything necessary to protect that. Understood?" Tears came again. Richard pulled me into his arms, holding me securely. "Cry if you need to, it's okay, I'm here." I pressed my face against his chest and let everything out. All the tension, all the fear, all the overwhelming gratitude and affection I felt for this incredible man. "I'll never leave you alone," Richard whispered, Not ever. That night, Richard asked me to sleep in his room. I can't leave you by yourself tonight, he explained gently. I didn't refuse. We shared his bed, but Richard simply held me close. Protective. Caring. Nothing more than that. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt completely safe. His arms created a sanctuary where nothing could hurt me. His steady breathing lulled me into the most peaceful sleep I'd experienced in years. Before I drifted off completely, I heard him whisper one more promise. You're mine now, Justin. And I take care of what's mine. I fell asleep with those words wrapping around my heart like a warm blanket, filling all the empty spaces that had existed there for so long. In the morning I woke before Richard did. Early sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows across his face. Asleep, he looked younger, less guarded. The hard edges of the CEO persona had melted away, revealing someone surprisingly vulnerable underneath. I studied him quietly, marveling at how drastically my life had changed in such a short time. A week ago, I was trapped in an unfulfilling relationship, going through the motions at a job that felt routine and meaningless. Now I wore a promise ring from a man who looked at me like I hung the stars in the sky. A man who rearranged his entire schedule just to have lunch with me. A man who physically removed threats to my safety without a second thought. Richard's eyes opened slowly, immediately focusing on me with perfect clarity. Good morning, he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. Good morning, I replied softly. He reached out and traced my jawline with gentle fingers. Did you sleep well? Better than I have in years. Good. He pulled me closer, tucking me against his chest. Get used to it. This is how every morning will be from now on. And lying there in his arms, watching the city wake up beyond the windows, I realized I wanted exactly that. Every morning, every night, every moment in between, with Richard. Justin, are you ready? Today was the board meeting. Richard wanted me to attend with him officially, as his partner. Nervousness twisted my stomach. The board members were senior executives, powerful people who could make or break careers with a single decision. They might judge me harshly for my relationship with Richard, but Richard squeezed my hand reassuringly. Don't worry, I'm with you. Always. When we entered the conference room, conversation stopped abruptly. Everyone turned to look at us. Their eyes dropped to the ring on my finger, then back to our joined hands. Richard spoke clearly, his voice carrying authority and certainty. Everyone, this is Justin Carter, my partner. Professionally and personally. Several seconds of silence followed. Then, slowly, applause began. The most senior board member, Mr. Harrison, stood up with a warm smile. We're very happy for you, Richard. Welcome to the family, Justin. I could barely believe what I was hearing. They were accepting this, just like that. The meeting proceeded smoothly. Richard kept my hand clasped in his beneath the table, a constant source of support and comfort throughout the proceedings. When everything concluded and the others departed, only Richard and I remained in the conference room. See? Richard turned me to face him. Everything worked out fine. You worried for nothing. I laughed, relief and happiness bubbling up inside me. Thank you, Richard, for everything. He kissed me then, soft and gentle but brimming with emotion. You don't need to thank me. This is what you deserve. What we both deserve. As we left the building, my phone chimed with a message from an unknown number. I opened it cautiously. Congratulations, Justin. I hope you're truly happy. Take care of yourself. Your ex. This message carried no threat, no manipulation, just acceptance. Finally, I showed it to Richard. He smiled, genuinely. Finally, he's understood. Now you're completely mine, officially and in every way. I smiled back, because it was absolutely true. That evening, Richard took me to the penthouse terrace. City lights sparkled in every direction, creating a breathtaking panorama. A cool breeze carried the scent of the coming night. Richard stood behind me, his arms wrapped around my waist, holding me close. Justin, he said quietly, I want to ask you something. My heart began racing, anticipation building with every passing second. He turned me to face him. Then, from his pocket, he produced that familiar velvet box. But when he opened it, the ring inside was different. Diamond-studded, unmistakably an engagement ring. Justin Carter, Richard looked into my eyes with complete sincerity. Will you marry me? Time stopped. The world narrowed to just the two of us. This moment, this question that would change everything. Happy tears blurred my vision. Yes, I said, voice breaking with emotion. Yes, Richard. Absolutely yes. Richard slid the engagement ring onto my finger, where it nestled perfectly beside the promise ring he'd given me before. Then he kissed me deeply, passionately, pouring everything he felt into that single connection. The rest of the world disappeared completely. When we finally separated, he was smiling, a real, pure expression of joy. I love you, Justin. I love you too, Richard. The words came easily now, spoken with complete confidence and certainty. We held each other tightly while stars emerged overhead, beginning their nightly dance across the darkening sky. You know, Richard said thoughtfully, if you hadn't sent that wrong message, none of this might have happened. I laughed, the sound light and free. So you're saying it wasn't actually a mistake? Not at all. Richard kissed my forehead tenderly. It was destiny. Pure destiny bringing us together. And that night, standing on the terrace under countless stars, we made promises to each other about our future. The story that began with an embarrassing error had transformed into genuine love. Because sometimes mistakes lead to better outcomes than any careful plan ever could. If that mistake brings you to your destiny, and my destiny was Richard, forever and always. The engagement ring caught the moonlight, sending tiny rainbows dancing across my skin. I twisted my hand slightly, watching the play of light, still hardly believing this was real. What are you thinking about? Richard asked, his chin resting on my shoulder. About how different my life looks now compared to a week ago. About how one accidental message changed absolutely everything. Do you regret it? I turned in his arms to face him directly. Not for a single second. That mistake was the best thing that ever happened to me. Richard's smile widened. Same here. Though I should confess something. Curiosity sparked. What? I'd noticed you long before that message. The way you organized my schedule so efficiently. How you always had my coffee ready, exactly how I liked it. The small notes you'd leave on my desk reminding me about on-calls. I'd been trying to figure out how to approach you without making things awkward. My eyes widened. Really? You never showed any sign. I'm very good at hiding my feelings when necessary, he admitted. But that message, it gave me the perfect opening. A reason to finally act on what I'd been feeling for months. Months? I repeated, stunned. At least 6, Richard confirmed. Probably longer if I'm being completely honest with myself. I shook my head in amazement. I had no idea. That was intentional. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable or abuse my position as your boss. But when you sent that message, he grinned. Well, all bets were off. I saw my chance and I took it. I'm glad you did. So am I. Richard kissed me again. Softer this time, more tender. So incredibly glad. We stayed on the terrace for hours, talking about everything and nothing, making plans for our future together, laughing about the absurdity of how we'd gotten here. Eventually the night grew too cold to remain outside comfortably. We went back inside, but neither of us wanted to let go of the magic of the evening. Richard made hot chocolate while I curled up on the sofa, watching him move around the kitchen with easy familiarity. This was my life now. Our life together. When he brought 2 steaming mugs over, we sat close together, my head on his shoulder, his arm around me. Happy? He asked simply. Happier than I've ever been. Good. Because I plan to keep you that way for the rest of our lives. And as I sat there in his arms wearing his rings, planning our future together, I knew without any doubt that he meant every word. Our story had started with a mistake, but it would continue as the greatest love either of us had ever known.